Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our February 5th North Middlesex Council meeting. Roll call, everyone is present. And I just want to make a note, due to the regional internet disruptions that we're experiencing today, we may experience some intermittent issues. And if your YouTube access is lost, we are recording it as well, so it will be sent out later if we do lose you. So at this time, I just want to make comment to we celebrated, or the fire department did celebrate, Rob Whitmore's 40 years with our fire department in Elsa Craig. And they did it. Rob's kind of a private guy. He didn't want to come in to do it, but I think it was important that we show appreciation to Rob. And as we know that his brother Ron has already got that 40-year pin, and it's pretty exceptional that they are the people they are and still doing what they do. I want to thank them for that. At this time, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you to make your introductions.
So thank you, Mayor Ropp. Mayor Ropp, members of council, I want to formally introduce our Manager of Recreation and Facilities, Kent Ferguson. So Kent started with us last Monday and he's hit the ground running. So welcome, Kent. You want to say a couple words?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Brandon, Mayor, members of council, colleagues. I'm excited for the opportunity to be here and to work with you all and get to know you well. And yeah, I just want to say thanks and excited to provide the level of service that the ratepayers expect and want and need. So now you can put a name to the face. My office is in the arena where Brandon's was. So come by and say hello. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Ken. Call the meeting to order and disclosure of pecuniary interest. If there is any, please let Alan know. Minutes of the previous meeting from January 22nd. Any errors or omissions or business arising? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Our next item is delegation from NFTC Telecom. And I believe Craig and Scott, if you come up and welcome.
There we go. So yeah, just wanted to jump into things real quick. So obviously we're just in our final stages of serviceability for the North Middlesex region there. Part of a much larger build, but things were delayed a little bit just with the, there was an overlap section where Hay Communications already had fiber within that section. So we were sorting that out with Hay and Infrastructure Ontario. We finally got that sorted out. So we're going to be proceeding with finalizing the build at this point. We have about 6 kilometers left and we'll go through kind of the gaps and the final items that we have to clean up here. So, yeah.
So yeah, I guess once again, thanks for having us. But yeah, like I guess if you, this page here, just kind of the scope of how much has been done and how much has been put in the ground. Obviously the weather hasn't done us any favors either, especially this last month. So more or less, a lot of the focus will be just closing the gaps and kind of finalizing connectivity. It'll be done through a phased approach. As you'll see it kind of with the fiber network all buried, all connected, it kind of all is interwoven, and certain sections need to kind of come online first, especially when it comes to backhaul paths, so that we've been able to kind of break it down kind of by phases, kind of 1 through 6 there. So that's kind of the breakdown there. And I guess the most obviously pressing matter is just kind of completion timelines. Obviously that's kind of the next big thing. Just like everybody, we want to bring high-speed connectivity to the folks that really have been missing out. I know just today, for example, you guys having some internet issues. That's the last thing you really want to need, especially if you have a work from home or a home business. So we've are expecting project completion for March 31st. And then based on the phases and where they're at, it'll kind of based on this chart here. So it looks like kind of April, and then some of the phases will be in the June timeframe there.
Yeah, so if you look at the last section there, you'll see the kind of the corresponding sections there. So we're going to have the build live as of the end of March there. And then we're going to start installations afterwards. So it will be a phased approach for the installations just based off of a few things that have to happen for each section to go online. But overall, we're actually very quick on the install front. We're going to have sales go in about a month in advance. Pre-sign, we'll get the buried service wires done in advance there as well for the vast majority of the phase here. And then once that's in, very quick installations, we can normally complete 5 in a day or so.
Yeah,
So
at least we'll have quite a few technicians, especially just with how close it is to our kind of home base of Mount Bridges. We'll have basically all hands on deck because a lot of folks have been waiting for service and have seen the pipe sticking out of the ground and that kind of stuff. So we're very much looking forward to bringing them to high speed.
In terms of connectivity as well, a lot of people will have questions just on the sales front. There's basically what we're doing. It's pure fiber optic service. It is the best quality service you can get in today's date. Redundancy, obviously you're having internet issues today. We have built-in redundancy in our network to prevent that from happening. And it's a very intricate system, utilizing some of our existing networks and the POP locations that we have there. We're going to be able to deliver 2.5 gigabits to every address we can service. Right now, with most providers in the rural areas we deal with, most people get a maximum of about 25 megabits. So to bring 2.5 gigabits, it's upload and download. It's going to be a major, major increase in quality, reliability, you name it. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, open to questions if anyone has it.
Okay, questions? Councillor Nerda.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions. One, for some clarification, what is the Parkhill POP to Elsie Craig POP?
Yeah, so those are POP locations, what they're called. They're basically interconnect locations where we have a circuit and we branch off that. So we'll bring in a circuit often fed by another provider there. We get to that and distribute signal from there.
Okay, thank you. And it's cut off on my screen and it was on that too. What is phase 6? And that's to be completed in June.
Yep. So phase 6, it's actually hidden there. You're right. It's a yellow. It's very hidden.
Yeah.
But that's the final stage of the build there. Yeah, hard to kind of notice that. But a few things have to happen for that to become serviceable, which is why it's the final stage. It's also a pretty large footprint as well. So we want to leave some room for that to be completed. That's why it's the last one.
Okay, and just one more question.
Go ahead.
What is the monthly cost
Yeah,
to users?
it ranges. A lot of people are going to have options there. So basically, like when you get up to the 2.5 gigabits, you're obviously going to be paying a lot more. But we do have package options under $100 and free installs for vast majority as well for our lower options there. So mainly start at 100 megabits symmetrical, same upload and download. Obviously unlimited data there. You can use as much as you'd like. And that's kind of how we range our service options. Yeah.
Just one more question. And do you have plans to go down Parkhill Main Street at all? Because I see on the map here, there is nothing.
Yeah, so
on the main.
The way we've built our network, and I'll double check on that, but I would doubt that that's the case. The way this is kind of in place, it's all underserved areas. That's why we ran into that issue with Hay, is because right off the start, it was actually originally not deemed. It was not deemed served when it actually was served by fiber. So that's why we were awarded funding for that section. And then we noticed that there was fiber there. We had the sales team out. We had a lot of inquiries coming in because people didn't really want another provider digging up their lawn and whatnot. So we had to go back to Infrastructure Ontario, tell them that there was another provider that was already servicing it, and so on and so forth. But yeah, ultimately, probably not going downtown Parkhill because it would be deemed a served area. But we'll double check for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Keogh and then Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. For a rural ratepayer that would like to connect, you mentioned relatively quick. Can I get a definition on relatively quick? The reason why I ask is it's been 14 months ago when we had North Frontenac come to us before, and they were starting to take orders as of last February. So we're at this point now, there hasn't been any connections to the ratepayers. Is this relatively quick this time? Is that a 2-week turnaround, a month turnaround, 2-month turnaround? Can I get some clarification on that?
No, good question. Obviously with, just like during the construction process, there was some hiccups and hurdles, but, with this timeline, it is very pressed. Like we've got multiple resources because we obviously want to get everybody connected as well. So in terms of actual, like you said, 2 weeks, a month, we're hoping we can keep on pace, and that's why we're kind of doing it as a phased approach. So when somebody does say sign up, we can be within like 2 weeks, we're hoping, of these, like for like, say, the last person. Whereas like, we're gonna be ready to go. We want to have that's why, it also, we have to get the lines run to each home in advance. Obviously, right now is kind of a stalwart period, just with the ground being frozen. So once the ground kind of unthaws, we can kind of ramp that back up, and during that kind of phase, and that's why we're really focusing in kind of phase by phase and not just this whole area at once. When there's some pretty different timelines from, looks like the one was May and then June, so we don't want to sign people up too early, basically.
Go ahead, follow up.
All of the fiber optic that's currently exposed, is there going to be a tub installed beside every one of those exposed fiber optics?
So-
to run into the residents?
Yeah, really good question. And it ranges. So what we do is we have couplers, which basically you're just bringing two conduits together there. And you'll see a lot of the fiber that's sticking up out of the ground. It'll actually end up just being buried completely. But any breakout points, anywhere where you're going to have to bring one of those fiber cables to a dedicated address there, normally you will need a flower pot vault or a just standard vault there. So there's two different types. One is about kind of the size of this table or so on the top there, obviously flush with the ground. And then the other, the smaller one, which we try to do as much as possible just because it's far less intrusive, is about this big there. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I have a couple of questions myself as well. You talked about 2.5 gigabytes. Do you throttle at all? Is there going to be throttling? You guarantee that?
Good question. Yeah. So we always have the ability to throttle. So in the case of, say, a network outage, obviously we like we mentioned, we have redundancy built in. So we might have three different locations where we're getting interconnects from other providers. Say one of those were to go down and we're relying on the other two to supply that initial area. So it's complicated how it works, but in that sort of situation, we would potentially need to throttle services just slightly. But in terms of your average connection there, no, what you see is what you get. You get speeds very, very close to that 2.5 gigabits. It's not 2.5 on the dot, just because there's always a little threshold there. But 2.5 is very, very close to what you'll be getting. Yeah.
If I could add on, I guess honestly, the main limiter in terms of speed is probably just how much your device will actually require. So when you do a speed test, most devices can't even use nearly enough, but you'll be able to use multiple devices at full speed.
Follow.
Additional question, Your Worship, through you. And it kind of falls on Councillor Nerda's question. But in Elsa Craig, we've got new subdivisions under construction and others planned. How does your plan relate to those new subdivisions and the future ones we're hoping will come online shortly?
Yeah, really good question. So we always have capacity built into all of our networks. We have a very large threshold for additional capacity down the road. So anytime a new subdivision goes in, happens all the time in our existing networks there, we'll make a plan. We'll speak with the developer in advance, oftentimes do a shared trench. So the initial phases of that development there, we'll put our infrastructure in, have it all built out. We have our GIS team and our CAD team that'll build out drawings and whatnot for the engineers. And then from there, we'll be able to service them, no issues whatsoever. That portion obviously is privately funded. So we always do a feasibility study ahead of time. Yeah.
So we have very large, to Your Worship, very large subdivision under construction now in Elsa Craig, Osable Bluffs. Are you part of that?
Not right now, no. We're focusing on the rural portions. Everything we're doing right now is specifically the underserved sections. Once we're done the underserved sections of this entire region, that's when we might look at expanding elsewhere through private investments.
Okay. Councillor Daigle?
The listing of the priorities here or the way you're going to fund, the yellow area is the last, is that right?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there any way of moving that to a different timeline? Those people are all losing their internet. Somebody in government made a dictum that they could no longer have internet in that area. And has taken the license away from Quadro for servicing that area, so all these people are gonna be without internet.
Yeah,
And we're saying it's not gonna be till June in their area, or well, if that's what you come up with.
no, that is absolutely, I think you were
I
dealing
know,
with those.
we've actually had quite a few residents kind of call in, specifically, hey, my tower's going down, X and Y, Z. We're kind of working towards a plan. Obviously, I'd have to kind of circle back and highlight just how big of, like, from what I've heard, sounds like it's between 5 and 10 customers that we've kind of personally reached out. So definitely, the more, the better, just in terms of kind of seeing if we are able to adjust. I know a lot of it just does have to depend on certain areas kind of coming on first, just in regards to the way the fibers, like the backbones and how it's kind of, so that our hands might be tied a bit, but certainly I know we're definitely kind of collecting lists of everybody that's called in and make sure that we can kind of give them accurate timelines for when they're ready.
The other thing I'll note on that as well, like these timelines that we've given you are very conservative timelines. We're quite confident we can get some areas live far ahead of March, like the end of March there as well. So we're going to be pushing to complete these connections as quickly as humanly possible. And those are on our radar. We have at least 4 or 5 people that have reached out from that exact issue there, and we're working to expedite that area, get it online as quickly as possible. So,
Okay, go ahead.
So it's safe to say if people in that area keep calling, we can say June, you'll have it up and running in their area.
it really helps us to know where the demand is. So I mean, we definitely recommend that they reach out. You can just contact sales at nftctelecom.com or the 1-888 number there. So 1-888-638-3575. If they call us directly or email in, it really helps us log that information, put it on our back end kind of mapping system, and start to kind of build a plan to get to different areas. Because not all of them will be right within the same footprint. They're going to be scattered on a wireless service. So they could fall into phase 3 or 5 or different areas there. We'd like to kind of know where they are and kind of build accordingly or focus our resources accordingly.
Okay,
So by this schedule though, but as of March, we're gonna have all those blue lines that are sticking up all over the place. They're gonna disappear.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at that, this plan here of the work remaining, that's exactly what that involves, is taking everything that's above ground right now, making sure it is underground. There's certain areas, and Scott can attest more to this, but like drop fibers, things like that, where we still do have to do breakouts. So those are purposely left above ground to allow us to do a much faster installation instead of digging up their lawn and trying to find it and splicing that and then proceeding with the drop from there. We leave it up, assuming that most people in the area will be reaching out to sign up for fiber optic services. Yeah.
okay. Just before I go to you, Adrian, can we put those contact numbers on the website? Easy for people to make sure that they have it for our residents.
Yeah.
Councillor Knellson. Okay, then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I do have a comment on the contact number, because I actually called this number about 5 months ago, maybe 6, and I was going to get a call back, which never happened. So I'm still waiting patiently for that return call, because I wanted to have some information on when the service would be available, which is very helpful that you're presenting it today. The question I have for you, and Councillor Nerda touched on it a little bit. how competitive will you in pricing in terms of with, say, Starlink?
Sure. So good example, Starlink, majority, their package is 129.95
No, it's not.
a month.
It's 160.
Oh, it's 160?
Yes.
Okay, well, so if I was to sell you, I would say for double to triple the speed, it's $99 with us. If you want 10 to 15 times the speed, it's $30 less than you're paying now. So, okay, we're hoping, like, when it comes to what, basically, when you can get a fiber optic service, not only is it hopefully cheaper than Starlink, but it's also much more reliable, and you get the upload and the download.
I'm sure Elon Musk will be disappointed
Yeah.
when I leave his services, but nonetheless, I intend to. My final question for you is that, I think I'm in the Brown area, which is number one, and I don't agree with Councillor Daigle. I think we should be first. We've been patiently waiting longer. And sorry about that. But, my question is, currently I have the little wire sticking out my front yard. And I understand you're going to plow that in. How is that going to happen? What's the process and connecting it to my home?
Sure, so I'll take that. So essentially, you've got basically the conduit sticking out. Next step is, say you sign up or you pick your package, whatever it might be. One of our buried service wire team members will reach out to you and basically contact where do you kind of want the line to go. Majority, it's just to the side of your house. Essentially, we want to just make sure homeowners are aware where the line's going. Last thing we want is to have to go back and make a return visit. So we always just make sure to call ahead. So we'll run the conduit. So while there's a lot of moving parts, next step is they're going to jet the fiber through that small conduit that's about the size of a pinky to the side of your house. So they'll do that. They'll just be kind of doing that behind the scenes. And then they're going to fuse in that fiber into the backbone and then test it at the side of your house. And then there might be a few small parts. So that's why it does take a bit of time. Well, that's why we tend to sign up in sections. That way we can kind of bury everybody's line, follow in behind. There's about 3 crews. And then when we do service installs, it's always nice. Hey, right here, next, kind of there. So that's kind of what you can expect.
That sounds really good. My final question for you is that a number of us out in the rural area, we do have the internet in-house, of course, which we need.
Yep.
But we also like to have it extended to other outbuildings. Is there special equipment that we're going to have to obtain to accomplish that?
So it all kind of depends. It's oftentimes it's a lot of times it's one-off solutions. If it's a business, we also sometimes just recommend a direct line if it's a true business. If you're looking for a moderate service, we have extenders we offer. If you are looking for a little bit of a medium ground solution, we can potentially run a line from that there. And it tends to be just discussions with the homeowner on a one-off basis.
And so the secondary line would be for the same price.
If you wanted a true secondary line, we do have sometimes we can work with homeowners to maybe try to do some discounts, kind of bundling.
Oh, so it's not the same price.
Like it depends, depends also just on the type of usage too. Like if it's a business that requires very sophisticated setup versus just a small, maybe you just need a very small dedicated connection.
Well, thank you.
Just so you know, that is the calm version of Councillor Nelson. That is the patient version. Sam, you wanted to speak next.
Well, no, hang on one second. You opened the
Oh,
door.
yeah.
So I am eager to talk to your sales team because I've been patiently waiting and my patience is wearing thin.
Okay, thanks, Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship and just for information, NFTC was gracious enough to leave us a bunch of business cards at the office too. So at the front desk up here, we do have a stack of business cards. If anyone comes in and has any questions, they're welcome to take business cards when they're here as well.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the update because I did have one thing, the pipes that are, the blue lines that are sticking up, if they're damaged, how much does that, because with snow and the plows and grass cutting and different things, if
We-
they're shortened, Does that mess you up or?
You know what, we handle all of that internally.
Okay.
Just as a company, like even a customer breaks their line on their own property,
Mhm.
happens every once in a while.
Okay,
We are a company that like, we always go to do those types of things for free. We don't try to just charge the random $50 fee or random $100 fee
Okay.
for those types of service calls there. Rarely would we ever even think about doing that. It's just not kind of the way we have been built and managed. Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. With no other questions, I don't think. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. And one thing I did want to
Okay.
mention as well,
Go
just working with Sam and the whole team there. It's a note from our vice president. He wanted to make sure we pass it along, but overall, like, you guys have done a ton just to make this process very seamless for us. I know we had delays on the back end, just working out the D-scope section with Hay there, but Grant, our vice president, wanted to mention that it's been
Okay.
a pleasure to deal with. And in addition to that, he's been obviously very just passing that along to Infrastructure Ontario, how smooth the process has been and how
Good to hear.
helpful everything has been there. Yeah.
When Grant called me out of the blue, I got this call from this Grant from North Frontenac, and I said, that's just a minute. And I called county IT. I said, is this legit? This guy said he's going to put in all this fiber in our rural roads. I said, where did this come from? And so I did check it out. And honestly, it was a great call. It was a surprising call at that time. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on for our first department report, and it is Joanne, and that's the tender results contract award for the Kelstein Drain number 2.
Yep. Mayor and members of council, in front of you is the report for the municipal drain tender results. And the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives this report, DIO number 2 of 2025, the municipal drain tender results and contract award for the Kelstein Drain number 2. And that council directs staff to award the tender contract MD1 2025 for the Kelstein Drain number 2 to Vanbury Drainage and Bulldozing Limited in the amount of $66,573.60, excluding HST.
Thank you, Joanne. Questions from council on this one? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Hodgins. Motion to accept, a seconder. Councillor Daigle, I think had your hand up first. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next one, Joanna's request for the drain major improvement on the Elliott drainage work, section 78.
Mayor and members of council, a landowner has experienced several tile blownouts as our tile is in poor condition and therefore it's time to replace it. It's approximately 54 years old. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive the report DIO 03 2025 regarding the notice of request for drain major improvement on the Elliott drainage works under section 78 1.1 of the Drainage Act, and that council appoints RDOB and Engineering Incorporated as engineer to the project.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions on this? No questions on this? We need what's your wish? We have a recommendation. Moved by Councillor Keogh, seconded by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, the next one is a request for a report as a drain major improvement for the Pete Seeb and Asaba River drain, section 78.
Mayor and members of council, as indicated in the report, banking work was done on the Pete, CB, and Asaba River drains. Staff has met with landowners in the Lambton Shores. Staff has met with landowners, the Lambton Shores Drainage Superintendent, and ABCA staff. The landowners in Lambton Shores showed staff the banking work that was completed on the North Middlesex side of the drain. Lambton Shores owners are concerned with the flow of water being altered, that it may result in crop loss, damage to their pumps and their roads. I've reached out to other municipalities and engineering firms to get a complete report on this drain without success. So the staff recommendation is that council receives the report DIO number 04 2025 regarding a request for a new report as a drain major improvement on the Pete Seeb and Asaba River municipal drains under section 78.1 of the Drainage Act, and that council appoints RDOB and Engineering Incorporated as engineer to the project.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions? Councillor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor. Joanne, by appointing the engineering firm, what can they do to rectify the situation?
Mayor and members of council, the engineering firm can come out and they can survey the drain. We'll have an on-site meeting to see how far this report will go. There could be some loaners downstream or upstream that want improvements as well. Until we have the on-site meeting, the direction could change. It could turn into a maintenance request. But again, I don't have a complete plan, profile, report, bylaw to do maintenance. So technically I need a report in order to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Daigle.
Thank you. Joanne, what happened that all of a sudden our side of the drain was in such formidable shape that it was going to stop all their drainage? Has somebody been working on this drain without our knowledge?
Yes. Yeah.
So who is paying for this drainage work? The person who illegally worked on the drain?
Mayor and members of council, that gets deemed through the engineer.
Okay,
So once an engineer goes out and surveys and designs and see if there was banking work, how high it is, like where the actual start and stop point is, they would determine if, sorry, the engineer determines where the costs are directed.
okay,
I'll be very interested to hear this. Yeah.
okay. Any other questions? No other questions? I do have one, and it's a general question that you're doing a lot of drains. Like, I know you're really busy on them. Is there any concern that Dobbins, of their capabilities to be able to do the engineering on all these drains? Or are we not anywhere near that threshold?
Mayor and members of council, I have no doubt in my mind that our Dobbin Engineering can
Okay,
do the work that we've requested.
okay. All right, thank you. All right, we have a recommendation in front of you. What's your wish? Counselor Nerda, Counselor Irwin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. The next one is a request for drain major improvements, the Watson Drain, 1964, section 78.
Mayor and members of council, at our site meeting on January 30th, 2025, a landowner has requested to have two branch drains, the Morley Drain Branch Number 1 and the Morley Drain Branch Number 2, looked into while the report is open. This request is in addition to the previous request that was brought forward in December 18th, 2024 council meeting. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive an additional request, the additional notice of request for drain major improvement on the Watson Drainage Works 1964, according to section 78, 1.1 of the Drainage Act.
All right, thank you. Any questions on this? No questions? We have a recommendation. Counselor Daigle, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I believe there's another one of additional request for drain major improvement for the Scott Drain, section 78.
Mayor and members of council, at our site meeting held on January 30th, 2025, several landowners requested to have the branch drains on the Scott Drain improved, and a request for a legal outlet is to be looked into while the report is open. This request is in addition to the previous request brought forward on the December 18th, 2024 council meeting. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive the additional request for drain major improvement on the Scott Drain according to section 78, 1.1 of the Drainage Act.
Any questions on this one? Seeing no questions. Counselor Keough, Counselor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. At this time, I need a motion to adjourn the regular council meeting, adjourned at 6:33 and convene as a committee of adjustment. Counselor Irwin, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And all right, first, thank you, Joanne. Our first item is a public meeting to consider application located at 11726 Petty Street, and it's Jerome Macco. And Jerome, you're here if you want to come up. Welcome. Okay, Ashley.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Ropp. So the purpose of my report this evening is to provide an evaluation and recommendation to the committee for a proposed severance application at 11726 Petty Street in Elsa Craig, which is located within the urban settlement area boundary. The applicant is proposing to create one new residential lot with a frontage of approximately 100 feet along Petty Street in an area that's approximately 1.35 acres in size. They would retain a parcel with a frontage of approximately 124 feet, also along Petty Street, with an area that's approximately 1.67 acres in size. Both parcels will utilize the existing driveway on Petty Street, and both will be municipally serviced. So the property is designated as residential and is zoned as residential density 1 and environmental protection. So the environmental protection zone is primarily concentrated on the back of the property, or sorry, solely concentrated on the back of the property where the woodlot is there. The application was circulated to the agencies and neighboring property owners in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Comments received are outlined in more detail in my report, but I can generally summarize them as no concerns from the Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority, Bell Canada, Integris, and the Building Department. Standard conditions were recommended by the Middlesex County Engineer for road dedication up to 18 meters from the center line of the road, if not already to that width. The access be limited to the existing driveway, and that the entrance at 11734 Petty Street, which is just the property to the north, be confirmed to not have their driveway encroaching onto the subject lands. And if it is, that it be relocated wholly onto the land that it services. The Director of Infrastructure and Operations notes that as part of a future building or permitting process, further engineering will be looked at. Each parcel will require its own services solely to be for their own use, and the parcels will also be subject to the appropriate on-site stormwater management controls. No public comments were received in advance of this evening's meeting. I will just note there is a typo in my report under the policy section where I do refer to it as the Park Hill Urban Settlement Area, but it is the Elsa Craig Urban Settlement Area. And then I do want to get into some policy analysis here. So the provincial planning statement, the county official plan, and the municipality's official plan generally permit lot creation in settlement areas subject to servicing and compatibility. So this particular application would be considered residential infilling. Emphasis is placed on efficiently using land, resources, infrastructure, and public service facilities, and infilling is encouraged where the lots are compatible with the lot area, frontage, and density patterns of the surrounding area, and where the application represents an orderly and efficient use of the land. So staff do note that the lot fabric is generally consistent with the surrounding residential lot fabrics located to the north of the property, with the lots to the south having a smaller lot frontage. As the committee is aware, the provincial government has made significant policy changes to address the housing crisis while balancing the need to efficiently utilize land in service settlement areas, as it is classified as a finite resource. So as such, it is staff's opinion that the subject lands are located in a municipally serviced settlement area, and a denser lotting pattern could be facilitated to make for a more efficient use of the land. As such, we are of the opinion that the application should be deferred. However, I will note that this is not the applicant's preference or desire for developing the lands, and that he is here this evening to speak to the proposal as well.
Thank you, Ashley. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so basically.
Oh, your microphone, please, Jerome.
Sorry about
Got
that.
it.
Hello, everybody. So basically what I'd like to do, as Ashley mentioned, is just sever it into two. That wasn't my original goal. Originally, if some of you know this area, it was going to be basically 4 estate size lots. The previous owner of one of the properties, he has severed, making it into 2 lots, which would be quite a bit smaller than what I'm looking at doing right now. So it just wouldn't be appropriate to put another, I'll quote it, estate lot on this one property. So I've decided that I'd like to sever it just in half to make them 2 good sized lots because of the area that it's in. I would like to note too that it would be a big issue as far as making any more lots there for shared driveways. I know that was a concern with the county engineer. Also, I know that there's been issues in the past if there was higher density with the stormwater. So I think this is the most appropriate avenue. I'd also like to mention too that the proposed severed lot has already been sold conditionally on severance to a person that I know will build a nice house. I used to live near him, and he is going to be making it a multi-generational home. His in-laws are going to be moving in there. So essentially there'll be 2 families in there. My home, which the remaining lot that I will be keeping, that is going to be my forever home. We will be also making a multi-generational home, as well as a separate detached garage with an apartment above it. So my goal is to build that garage / apartment, live in that until we finish building our house, and then rent out that apartment. So there would essentially be potentially 5 families living on these 2 lots, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I have to ask, is there any public comments? I'll ask again, any public comments on this application? Seeing none, I'll turn this over to council for questions, comments. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Kind of questions and comments at the same time, and maybe the planner can help me out. I think you mentioned in your presentation that the configuration we see there is compatible with the development to the north of this property and consistent.
Yes, through Chair Ropp, that is correct. I do think it generally does align with the lot frontages in the area. I will note that the original 4 lots severed in 2019 was done so under the provincial policy statement, the 2014 version. And since then, we have seen 2 new policy statements come forward from the province. So there has been a shift in policy since that point in time. I will say that one of the policy tests is whether it is consistent with the lot area. But then there also is the emphasis on efficiently using land that's considered municipally serviced in the settlement area boundary.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
If I can continue, Worship, thank you. And the last third, about a third of both of these lots, because they're environmentally sensitive, cannot be built on.
That is correct. So they are classified as environmentally protected at the rear there. So it does limit it to just conservation authority use, essentially.
Go ahead.
And I heard this evening there may be concerns around additional driveways onto Petty Street from the county's perspective. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's been an issue in the past. They wanted to see shared driveways. So where the driveway is right now for that lot is exactly where it would be for these 2 lots, proposed lots.
I can see that it's a very busy road. Only going to get busier, Your Worship. When we're ready to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion to this. I'd like to move when we're ready for that.
Move to approve the application.
I want to approve, not defer the application.
Okay. All right. I just have a question for the planner. Do you see any problem? Because you were recommending deferring it. Do you see a problem with approving this tonight?
Ultimately, the desire of the committee is just that. I can see merits to both positions for sure. I will admit that I was, on the fence with the policy analysis in this particular situation, but I do have conditions drafted should the committee wish to proceed that way. At the end of the day, I do think it is municipally serviced land in a settlement area boundary, and there's that saying that comes to mind: if you don't go up, then you have to go out. So, that's where the emphasis came from. So I do have conditions if the committee would like to see them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cornelison, we have a motion on this. Councillor Cornelison, go ahead.
I believe you asked my question, Mayor Ropp, but I just want clarification on this, because when you talk about deferring it to come up with a denser lotting fabric, are you suggesting that he increase the heights of these buildings to accommodate more families?
Through Chair Ropp, not necessarily. It would still follow under the R1 zoning provisions. Just looking at the frontages, though, you could essentially fit 4 lots in there and meet the required frontages and lot areas for that zone. So that was something that we were considering, recommending that be explored. The entrance components are certainly a concern still from the county engineer's perspective. So if you're going to go that route, you're ultimately going to get into access easements, and it's still going to be limited to that one driveway. So there is definitely merit in that point as well.
But the new owners will also have the option of constructing tiny homes in their backyard, will they not?
Through Chair Ropp. So technically, yes, I don't want to call them tiny homes per se, but additional residential units, as the province classifies them, are permitted as of right in fully serviced settlement areas, regardless of what our official planner zoning bylaw says.
So that'd be an option for the new owners coming in and for Mr. Macco as well.
Yes, exactly. So you can have one attached and one detached.
Thank you.
Okay, I should have asked for a seconder for that motion before we went on. Do we have a seconder for that motion? You're seconding it. Seconded by Councillor Cornelison. Now comment on it. Go ahead.
I just have one more
Councillor
question. Potentially 5 families going to share the entrance and exit of one laneway. Are
Yes.
you happy with that?
I can speak to where I live right now, which is a couple lots down. The family that purchased 11744 had 11 people living in there, and they were all adults.
Okay,
So lots of vehicles.
okay. I'm maybe forward thinking that in the future, when you have 5 different families, but they start into disputing who's going to shovel the end of the laneway, would you not want 2 laneways, one per lot?
That would be ideal, but the county doesn't want it. When we have shared laneways now, and it's never been an issue. I actually plow it, so I don't have a problem with it. I'm gonna be living there forever. I'm good with it.
Okay.
Okay, and we are just approving a severance here tonight. Go ahead, Alan.
Your worship, I don't mean to jump in here,
Yes,
but
you do.
yes, I do. But I think it should be made clear, is the applicant aware of these proposed conditions?
That's the conditions. Yes, I am. Those are the same conditions that I was exposed to before.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All right, we have a motion in front of us that has been seconded. In favor of the motion? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Sorry. So the motion was so I can go
Go
ahead.
forward. Yes,
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
thank you, Trump. Our next item is public meeting to consider application B2 2025 located at 31946 Sylvan Road, Porkland Farms Incorporated. The applicant here? You just want to come forward? It's up to you. No, you're good? You're good? Okay. All right, go ahead, Ashley.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Ropp. So the purpose of the application is to implement a hydro easement on the property with an address of 31946 Sylvan Road for the existing aerial hydro wires to fulfill a condition of consent B16/2024, which was a surplus farm dwelling severance approved by the committee on July 17th, 2024. So the lands are approximately 50 acres in size and surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural in nature. The severed parcel will be approximately 2.47 acres in size with frontage on Sylvan Road. So that's just the red parcel outlined there. And they will retain the existing, or the severed parcel will retain the existing dwelling and accessory structures. The retained parcel is approximately 47.53 acres in size, which is outlined in yellow on the map in front of you. And it currently contains agricultural lands and crop production, and no change of use is proposed for either parcel. So the proposed hydro easement is a standard width of 6 meters, which is approximately 20 feet, and it'll be 0.12 acres in size. So it's just that green hatched line that's shown on the location map. So essentially, this is just going to allow the existing hydro service that will services the dwelling right now to remain in place and be legally established in the future. So the application was circulated to agencies and neighboring property owners in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Comments received were outlined in more detail in my report, but again, can generally be summarized as the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, the county engineer Integris, and the chief building official having no concerns. The municipality's director of infrastructure and operations did note that the hydro service provider must review and provide technical requirements for the easement, which is standard. And no public comments were received in advance of this evening's meeting. So my recommendation is that the easement be granted, subject to the conditions in my report. And I will note that the conditions from the original surplus farm dwelling severance application still stand. This is just to fulfill one of those conditions.
Thank you, Ashley. Is there anything you'd like to add at this time? No? Okay. I have to ask, is there any comments from the public on this application? Seeing none? Questions from council? Deputy Mayor Hodgins, you're moving it? Moved by Deputy Mayor Hodgins, second by Councillor Canellison. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And the next one is a public meeting to consider application MV1 2025 located at 30571 Sylvan Road and Linda and Paul Wilmsey. Do you just want to come forward on this one? Okay. Welcome. Okay, go ahead, Ashley.
Thank you, Chair Ropp. So the purpose and effect of this minor variance application is to seek a reduced front yard setback for a portion of the attached garage, estimated to be approximately 300 square feet, again at the municipal address of 30571 Sylvan Road. So 9 meters or 29.53 feet is the required front yard setback from the front lot line, whereas 3 meters or 10 feet is proposed for a portion of the structure. This equates to a difference of 6 meters or 19.53 feet. So the subject lands are located in the Hamlet settlement area of Hungry Hollow, and they are north of Townsend Line. Lands are on the west side of Sylvan Road, and they're approximately 0.69 acres in size. Surrounding uses are predominantly rural residential in nature. The lands currently contain an in-ground pool and a garden shed on them. The proposed reduction would be solely for the front lot line for a portion of a new single detached dwelling to be built, and this new dwelling will replace the former dwelling that was lost in a fire in 2024. The owner has explored alternative locations on the property, but has determined that due to the regulated area of the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, the location of the septic system, and the location of the existing in-ground pool, the subject lands are limited in where the new proposed dwelling could be located. And I would just note that the sketch of the proposed dwelling on the location map also includes a future deck area, which equates to a total square footage of approximately 4,700 square feet. But the owners do not intend to build a dwelling that large. This minor variance, again, is strictly to do with the front yard setback. And the focus on the building envelope should be focused entirely on the main front wall line. The application was circulated to the agencies and neighboring property owners in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. In terms of comments received, no concerns were noted by the Middlesex County Engineer, the Deputy Chief Building Official, the Chief Building Official, and the Director of Infrastructure and Operations. A standard comment pertaining to municipal 911 signage was provided by the County Emergency Services Department. And I will note that the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority did note that the application is only to reduce the front yard setback. However, they feel they cannot support the application as they worry it gives the perception that they are satisfied with the development as a whole, with a dwelling that could be far greater in size than the pre-existing dwelling. So they did recommend deferral and/or denial. So staff are satisfied that the 4 tests to grant the minor variance are met, outlined in greater detail in my report. But this opinion is based on the location of the lands, the context of the development, the existing characteristics of the surrounding area, and that it's not anticipated that the reduced front yard setback for a portion of the front wall line will negatively impact neighboring properties, the character, the streetscape, sightlines, or road safety. And from the sightlines and road safety perspective, I have confirmed with the Public Works Roads Manager that he has no concerns there. I will just note that a reduced front yard setback is proposed for, again, just a portion of the garage. And approximately this will be set back 47.28 feet from the edge of pavement of Sylvan Road. In regards to ABCA's comments, I certainly appreciate their comments, and I have noted their expressed opposition, not necessarily again to the front yard setback, but to the rough sketch of the building envelope as a whole. They have stated that while they may not have concerns with the reduction in the front yard setback, they require additional information regarding the overall development proposal. I would note that it's important to remember that the approval of the minor variance strictly pertains to that front yard setback and does not in any way indicate approval of the proposed development as a whole by the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority or the building department. Further, I have confirmed with the chief building official that the applicant is required to engage in further consultation with the ABCA and have a permit issued by them prior to a building permit being able to be issued. The sketch provided on the location map, again, is to illustrate the front wall line of the proposed structure. And it also will provide a reduced setback, which will ultimately provide the applicants an opportunity to pull the dwelling up farther away from the natural hazard feature, in my opinion. And regardless of the minor variance process, the owners have to obtain an ABCA permit and a building permit prior to construction regardless. So we have had verbal conversations with the owners regarding this. They are aware of that. And I am recommending that the relief be granted with the conditions that it is strictly for the front main wall line of the proposed dwelling. In support of ABCA's position, this further clarifies that in no way is it approving the building envelope as a whole, and the relief strictly pertains to a portion of the garage and the front yard setback. Additionally, in support of ABCA's position, I would recommend the condition that the owner shall obtain approval to construct from the ABCA and the CBO prior to building permit issuance. As I noted, this is required regardless, but I think adding it in as a condition makes it abundantly clear. So my recommendation, I would say, does not in any way take away from the requirement to meet the regulations of the ABCA, and I am recommending it be approved with conditions.
Thank you. What comments you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, well, basically, like Ashley pretty much said it. We got nowhere to move. We're up against the pool, we're up against the neighbor, we're up against the Asable Bayfield. So going forward, we definitely don't want to have any issues with ABCA. So we want to try to keep it up, away from the creek and away from the hazard at the back. So again, that footprint is way bigger than it's going to be. We hope to be roughly 3,000 square feet when we're done. like total with the garage and everything. So yeah, I mean, basically we want to keep it up so that we don't get in trouble with ABCA.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have to ask, there was no written submissions on this other than what you talked about. Public comments on this application? Seeing none? Questions from council? Go ahead, Councilor Nelson.
Thank you. Well, as a board member for the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority, I do have questions about the size of the property. And now you said 3,000 square feet or 4,000. What is the actual size of the new dwelling going to be?
Sauble Bayfield recommended that we do not go forward with any plans
Yes, they did.
until the severance was made. So we don't know.
You don't know. Okay, so you're going to be consulting with the Conservation Authority to see what you can build and where?
We originally talked to the Conservation Authority about having the house basically in the same like area, which you have to, because you can't.
Right.
You can't, there's no place to move.
I know, but
And that's about as far as it went.
they have concerns about the sketch that we see on the screen up there because it looks significantly larger. Now, is that just an ad hoc sketch or is that the original sketch or what
No,
that
that's
represent?
Just a first rough sketch to apply for this severance.
Okay.
And once that's severed, then we'll communicate with the Sauble Bayfield. Definitely going to reduce the square footage of the house greatly. But we didn't want to go, I mean, if we go small and want to go bigger, that's going to be a problem.
Yes.
So that's
Okay.
definitely not going to be any bigger. It's
Okay.
definitely going to be smaller. So what if we get approval for the minor variance, sorry. Then we'll go forward to the architect and present a real plan.
Would it not be I think it might be advisable to consult with the Sauble Bayfield before you go to the architect and maybe consult with them at the same time. It might save you some time and money.
Yep.
Because the authority can be very challenging sometimes when it infringes on hazard lands.
Yeah, so we won't be infringing. We're not going to go any farther back to the hazard. So if anything, we're going to be farther away from the hazard. So
Right. Just my advice to you, like having been on the board for a number of years, okay, that it's often beneficial to have them present when you're doing your design and build with the architect, just to save you some steps and perhaps some money.
yeah, the architect will be in contact with ABCA.
Very well.
I think our planner is wanting to remind us that we're dealing with strictly a minor variance here tonight. I'm getting that
Well,
look.
you're right.
Ashley, go
But I
ahead.
just have one final question, and that is that they're clear that this is a minor variance and that by no way can you begin building.
This meeting today is for the minor variance of the garage. That's it.
Thank you.
Ashley.
Yeah, through Chair Up, I just wanted to add that the Wilmsey's designers have been in contact with the Conservation Authority and trying to set up a meeting with them to discuss prior to moving forward with plans. So that's certainly in the works.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Carried. Opposed? One opposed. Okay. All right, our next item is, thank you very much. Thanks. Our next item is, I'm looking for, public meeting, consider application B3 2025 located at 110 Petty Street, and it's, who's coming up? Paul, you're coming up, and John? Or who's, Joanna's coming up? Oh, you're on your own by the look of it. Okay, good evening.
I will just point out that the owner of the property is present if there are any questions, but told him he could choose to sit back there or come up here, and he's elected
Okay.
to stay back there.
Well, they can always come up if they want something they want to add.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ropp. So the subject lands have a municipal address of 10040 Petty Street, and they are located northeast of Poplar Hill Road and on the north side of Petty Street. So the lands are located in an agricultural area, and they are designated as such and classified as prime agricultural lands in the provincial planning statement, and in an agricultural area in the Middlesex County official plan and the North Middlesex official plan. A portion of the lands do contain woodlands as well. The purpose and effect of the consent is to sever a parcel of land from an existing 67-acre farm parcel for a surplus farm dwelling severance. So the proposed severed lot is just outlined in red on the screen there for you. So the severed parcel is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 157 feet along Petty Street and an area of approximately 0.8 acres. It will contain the existing single detached dwelling, which is serviced by municipal water and a private septic system, and there is an existing access to Petty Street already. The retained parcel, which is outlined in yellow, which is the larger agricultural portion, is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 638 feet along Petty Street and an area of approximately 66.2 acres. The retained parcel currently contains agricultural lands and crop production and woodlands, and access will need to be confirmed as a condition of the severance, and no change of use is proposed for either the severed or the retained parcel. So a zoning bylaw amendment was also filed concurrently with the severance application, which would rezone the severed parcel to an agricultural small holding zone and rezone the retained parcel to prohibit the establishment of any new residential dwellings in accordance with the provincial planning statement and the official plans. Notice of the applications were circulated to the required agencies and property owners in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The ABCA noted that the hazard area will remain on the lands to be retained, and as such, they did not have a natural hazard concern. Emergency services, the Middlesex County Engineer and the Building Department have requested standard conditions included, which includes road widening, approved 911 addressing, confirmation of service locations, and inspection of the septic system. I will note that emergency services did have a typo in their comments provided, stating that an incorrect address was referencing the first consent application of the evening for Jerome Macco on Petty Street. So I just want to clarify that their comments do pertain to this specific parcel, and the condition included in the recommended conditions is standard in nature anyway, so it doesn't affect that in any way. So the Director of Infrastructure and Operations noted no comments pertaining to the road as it is a county road, and he did note that the proposed parcel shape is not ideal. No public comments were received prior to the submission of this report. So staff are of the opinion that the proposal meets the requirements of a surplus farm dwelling severance, provided the recommended conditions are included. However, I would note that the proposed lot configuration for the severed parcel is not supported. It's staff's opinion that a revised lot fabric for the severed parcel with a more rectangular shape is possible, and as such, this lot fabric has been included as a condition of approval. This will ultimately mean that a portion of the significant woodlands will be included in the severed parcel. However, staff note that the preference is for this over the loss of agricultural lands to square out the shape. And we are satisfied that if this portion is rezoned to an environmental protection zone, that it will mitigate any effects and meet the intent of the official plan. This particular position has also been taken as no change of use, no site alteration, and no buildings or structures are proposed that would impact the woodlot. The other conditions that are standard in nature include a detailed preliminary survey be provided and approved by the municipality, that legal access be confirmed for the retained parcel, that a severance and development agreement outlining normal farm practices in the area be registered on title, that services are wholly contained to the severed lot, road dedication, and then other standard requirements as it pertains to the draft transfers and legal undertakings. So I would like to note that the zoning bylaw amendment has been brought before council this evening for information purposes only, and that a bylaw will be brought back for council at a later date, as the zoning provisions will be included are going to be changed slightly based on whether the lot fabric is approved by the committee or not. So my recommendation, strictly as it pertains to this consent for the committee, is that the consent be granted with the conditions outlined in my report, and that this report be received for information as well.
All right. Thanks. Go ahead. Paul, your comments?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. I will, the planner had pointed out the typo for the road. I was going to point that out as well, but I agree that it doesn't really affect what the conditions that are being sought are, so I'm not worried about that. I would just let council know that my client would much prefer the squared out version of the lot. The reason we submitted it in the strange configuration you see there is because it is just skirting some significant woodlands, and the application wasn't going to be deemed to be complete if we had squared it out the way we wanted in the first instance. So we're very happy that the planner is now proposing that we square that out. And I have reviewed the proposed conditions as well as my client, and we're comfortable with the conditions. One thing I do want to ask through Your Worship, if I could inquire with the planner, provided that the council approves the application, are we able to simply amend the rezoning application and resubmit it even tomorrow so that we can get it on the next council meeting.
Yeah, through Chair Ropp. So I would be comfortable with just a letter summarizing the changes and the proposed lot fabric and then bringing that forward at the next planning meeting, which would be the first meeting in March.
Okay. All right. I have to ask at this time, comments from the public on this application? Seeing none, comments from council committee?
I have a
Sorry,
question.
go
if I may.
ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to clarify and be clear because I know that we talked about paragraph 3 under agency comments with the construction of other dwellings on this property, but that's the typo you're referring to that will be removed. Is that correct?
Yes, through Chair Ropp. So I believe it was just a typo provided by emergency services. When I can, I try to copy and paste comments verbatim. So the intent is just that there's appropriate addressing and that's addressed in the condition.
So John won't be building like a complex of townhouses back there.
No.
No, there's no intention to construct anything.
Okay. Any other questions? Moved by Councillor Keogh, seconded by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my only matter. If I can be excused.
Yes. No. Okay, I need a motion to leave Committee of Adjustment, adjourn to and convey to public meeting. Moved by Councillor Keogh, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is a public meeting, Planning Act. It's a public meeting to consider zoning application ZBA 1/2025 located at 35290 Creamery Road in the Fanosh Farms. No, you're good? Okay, go ahead, Ashley.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Ropp. So this report is regarding 35290 Creamery Road, which is located north of Mooresville Drive and on the east side of Creamery Road. The property is approximately 100 acres in size and surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural in nature. The zoning bylaw amendment before council this evening is required to fulfill a condition of consent B11/2023, which was conditionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment on July 19th, 2023, to sever approximately 2.15 acres of land from an existing 100-acre farm parcel as a surplus farm dwelling severance. So the severed parcel of the consent will retain the existing single detached dwelling and the accessory structure. It is serviced with municipal water and a private septic system, and it does have an existing access to Coldstream Road. The retained parcel contains agricultural lands and crop production and a barn that's to be removed as a condition of the consent, and the lands are currently not serviced. A new access will also have to be confirmed as the condition of that consent. So the zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the severed parcel from general agricultural to agricultural small holding to recognize the rural residential use, to permit for a reduced lot frontage due to the flag shape of the lot and a maximum accessory structure height of 7 meters. I will note that it's estimated that the accessory structure is actually only 6.4 meters in height, but I just wanted to leave a little bit of wiggle room for the change of use permit should building find that it's a little bit taller than that. The existing uses on the property are currently permitted in this zone. The retained parcel will be rezoned to from general agricultural to agricultural exception, number 114. And this is strictly just to prohibit the establishment of new residential dwellings in accordance with the requirements of the province, the county, and the local official plans. The application was circulated to the required agencies as well as neighboring property owners in accordance with the Planning Act. The Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, County Engineer Integris, Deputy Chief Building Official, and Director of Infrastructure and Operations noted no concerns. Middlesex County Emergency Services did provide standard comments as it pertains to addressing, but this is already set to be addressed with the severance. So I will note that the conditions of the consent still stand. This is just to fulfill one of those conditions. No public comments were received prior to the submission of this report. And I am of the opinion that it is consistent with the provincial planning statement, is in conformity with the Middlesex County official plan and in conformity with the North Middlesex official plan. And as noted, all other conditions of the consent still apply. So I am recommending that this report be received for information and that council considers passing the bylaw and completing the first, second, and third and final reading this evening.
Thanks, Ashley. So questions from council? No questions from council on this? Deputy Mayor Hodgins?
It wouldn't be right if I didn't say something. Thank you.
That's
Your
right.
Worship. No, I just question here. I think most people already know. I've never been in favor of
these flag style severances. But I do realize that they fall into our, what fits in our municipality. One of the questions is, I did see on here, I forget just where was, the buildings out back. When do they decide whether they are to be made not livestock capable or tore down? When does that, have they already made that decision that they were going, which way are they gonna go?
Yes, through Mayor Rob. So they are going to tear down the barn. So there won't be any MDS implications for that. And that is required as a condition of consent. So I'm not 100% sure the status, but they do technically have 2 years to fulfill the conditions. So I would expect if it hasn't happened already, it will happen very shortly. And then in terms of the accessory structure there, it's a drive shed essentially, and it will be retained and converted to an accessory structure. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Do you see you're making the motion? Oh, I thought you said you were. I'm sorry. I thought you said you were. Councillor Irwin, Councillor Keough, all in favor? Carried. Opposed? One opposed. All right. Yeah, one more, Ashley. Department report is a report from the planner, and that is on zoning amendment, application ZBA 2025, 140 Petty Street.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Rob. So I will just note that we have already discussed this as a committee for the consent, but this is as council for the zoning bylaw amendment. So I won't go into too much detail, but essentially the zoning bylaw amendment is required as a condition of the consent, and based on the revised law fabric, it will be coming back before council at a future date for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this? We have a recommendation in front of us, moved by Councillor Daigle, second by Councillor Nerda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Our next one is 8.2 report from Director of Corporate Services, Alan. That is on the user fees and charges.
Thank you, Your Worship. We try to do annual reviews of fees and charges. This time, this year we've decided to go with a plan of bringing all the proposed schedules to council 2 weeks before we're actually going to propose the bylaw to see if we can have any input. So barring any input, we will bring this back in 2 weeks for a review.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I have a couple of questions on the fees. And I'd like to go first to schedule, I think it's labeled 5 at the front here. And it deals with urban boundary adjustment fee, new fee of $4,000. And the data compilation request, $75 an hour. So I'll do the data one first. I understand this is very important for businesses who are trying to get established in the community, and there's economic development implications of this. So I'm wondering why we're going to ask for this fee. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat here. Why we're asking for this fee.
Your Worship, the planner may have further input regarding this, but I believe what's happening with urban boundary expansions is they're way more work. And when it comes to the data compilation, the planner has been bombarded with data requests, and it's costing us a lot of time and money.
So, okay, do you want to add to that, Ashley?
Yeah, I would just say, so these are increases that we're going to see across the county. And it is to do with the provincial permissions to initiate privately initiated official plan amendments to expand your settlement area boundaries. So to do something like that, essentially these private consultants are doing all of the work that the county would typically do, but to do that, they require an exponential amount of data from us. So, I mean, they're not simple requests. They take a lot of staff time and a lot of money and a lot of resources. And so I think that this fee is something that you're going to see in all the locals.
So are you saying this is more recouping our costs?
Yes,
It's not a
exactly.
making money project, it's recouping our costs. Okay.
Exactly. And I would be surprised if it's fully recovering costs, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Irwin, go ahead, Carolyn.
May I just suggest there's a clarification put on there, because I think the councillor's comment is valid. I think we're not suggesting this for data just for any request. This is specifically to do with official plan amendments for urban boundary review. So I think that that clarification, in my opinion, should be added to this so that it's not $75 an hour for someone to come in about a new business who just wants to know some basic information about our municipality. That is not what this is at all. This is about in dealing with ward boundary reviews urban boundary reviews as Ashley has mentioned. So just to provide that clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Irwin, do you have follow-up?
I do, your worship. I'd like to go to number 6. I want to look at transfer station fees that we're now implementing, increasing significantly in some cases. And also at budget time, as we're looking to bring forward, we've talked considerably last 2 years, I have at least, around a leaf and yard waste station, for lack of a better term, for Elsa Craig, though I did remember Councillor Keel the last time I mentioned it, said, what about Nairn? I think we can do that quite inexpensively now from our recent review with Tri-Recycling and BRA. So I'm wondering how this would all fit together with those requests on the table.
Sam, do you want to speak to this? Maybe, I know we've had a conversation about this, and I think.
Yes, through your worship, and Brandon's welcome to add as he sees fit. So part and parcel with budget conversations and when we get further into that, and I'm happy to discuss numbers tonight as well. Our budget for the transfer station historically over even just the past 3 years alone has lost quite a bit of money. So in addition to just as part of budget looking to up so we're not losing so much money, our fees are well above, or sorry, well below what bordering municipalities charge. Obviously, it's a great service to offer, but when we are far behind and to be honest, not even breaking even, but losing exponential amounts of money, we're hoping to just start incrementally raising the fees to get us closer to those bordering municipalities in terms of what they charge for similar service. So the fees that we are proposing as part of this are about half of what other bordering municipalities charge. And if we were to double them, then we would be more in line with what others charge. So that's what's put forward tonight, is to not in addition to the spring leaf pickup program, but just hopefully get us in a better spot budget wise, that we're not losing so much money on the transfer station and that we get better in alignment with our bordering municipalities in terms of hopefully even just breaking even for the transfer station. And Brandon, you're welcome to add if you have anything to add.
No. And also just a comment to that, I know it's a little bit off this, but we talked about improving our recording of who's using it, improving it. Do you have more?
Just to follow up on this particular issue,
go
Your
ahead.
worship. All right.
Go ahead.
My concern always is this. People will throw their waste on the side of the road if they find the fees too exorbitant. And from going to no fees to fees, or significant fees, my concern is more and more people, unfortunately, will take the cheaper option and just throw their material on the side of the road or down a gully or somewhere like that. So that is a real concern.
I think we do have some of that concern already. I think, Brandon, you can speak to that.
Your worship, yeah, it happens. It's been happening as long as I've been here. Waste being thrown on the side of the roads. We're finding more though, it's not people from this municipality. When we find addresses or anything, it's outside the municipality that are throwing garbage on the side of our roads because they don't want to leave it in their municipality. That's what we're finding more and more.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I think this is something we need to look at because I'm concerned about illegal dumping, I guess is the best term of this. And I'm not sure what the solution is, but I don't know if raising the fees is the right solution.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sam.
Yeah, and through your worship, I will just add that you are correct. Part of this is both raising the fees and looking at process as a whole and what we are doing currently and what we can do better to both with process improvements and fee increases, increase the service to the transfer station that we have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Romp. I have a few questions, actually. My first question is for the water fees. And I was looking very carefully on the water fees, and I don't know who to direct this question to. Perhaps Sam, I'm not sure if it's you. some time ago, we were talking about
Can you
with
just
water.
mention which schedule you were talking about so everyone's on the
Oh,
same
yeah,
page?
water. Water, it's underwater. Want to go to the next, number
Schedule F.
7, I believe.
Pardon me?
Number 7.
Number 7.
Number
Okay, thank
7.
you.
So I was looking specifically because I know when we discussed some policy changes, we talked about when like for a good example is with the Wilmses here, when they lost their house due to a fire. Okay, and now it's probably going to be a year, maybe 2 years before they rebuild and reoccupy their home. And will they then have to repay or pay again the full connection fee to hook back up to the water system? Or can they continue to pay to the infrastructure charge and then just pay the minimum amount to reconnect? So that's my question. I was looking for the fee. I didn't see it. Where is it?
Through your
Go ahead,
worship,
Sam.
yeah, through your worship to the council, I would just add that regardless of, I think, what the fee says in a situation like that where they already have an existing service, we certainly wouldn't look to charge them a full service charge for a service they already have.
Can I have that in writing? Because there's been some situations in the past where people have had, the house has been empty or not occupied for a number of years, was disconnected at the road. And when they did eventually build a new house some years later, they were charged the full fee. So I'd like to see that in written format if possible.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, through your worship to the councillor, again, I guess we would have to look into where the disconnection happened. If it happened at property line, then it would just be a simple matter of reconnecting to it and going forward. If they did connect under the roadway, then I guess that would mean we would have to dig up the roadway again to reconnect. So again, I suppose it would be a matter of case specific. But again, with a situation of that nature, I would think we'd certainly look to work with the applicant to find an amicable solution that was not recharging them full fees for a service they already have.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you very much. So I have a couple of questions for Brandon as well. My question for Brandon is, well, actually, I'm sorry, I got to go back to Sam. Meter pit installation. Does the municipality pay for the meter pit installation or does the customer pay for it now?
Through your worship to the councillor, historically, it appears that the municipality has paid for them, but going forward, that is going to change. We will no longer be paying for meter pits or supplying meter pits. The only thing that we will be paying for and supplying, which they pay us for back through charges, is the water meter, and everything else is paid for and supplied by the applicant. And that includes meter pit.
Okay, so that leads me to my question now for Brandon. Under your category there, under equipment and whatnot, I see that I could rent equipment from you. Is that true? So I can put in my own meter pit?
Through your worship, no, that wouldn't be renting it for yourself to use. That would be us doing the work for you and being charged that price.
Oh, I thought I saw equipment rental fees or charges per hour is what I thought.
We're not putting you in a grader. We're not putting you in a grader.
So, okay, that clears that up. The other question I have for you again, Brandon, is mailbox replacement. I see here the numbers are $75 and $25. When I reviewed the accounts payable, the last one last month, I haven't done this month yet, I saw a number of mailbox replacements for $100. So what is our limit on the mailbox replacement?
Through your worship, so yeah, the $75 is for the post, 25 is for the box. If they're both damaged, you get the $100.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So when we have new operators, there seems to be a tendency to have more mailboxes replaced.
I would say no, our policy, I'm in the process of updating it to make it more clear what would happen if it does get it, when it gets replaced in that process, and you'll see that come forward.
Okay, thank you. My final question is either for Alan or Carolyn, I'm not sure. I was looking for the cemetery plot fees. I didn't see anything anywhere referring to cemetery when we looked at fees. Is there any increase? What are the fees for a plot in a cemetery?
Through your worship, when it comes to our review at this point in time, we did not focus on that particular schedule. The schedule will be reviewed next year after we have a budget.
It'd be helpful to have that in the comments here. That'd be very helpful. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Keogh and then Councillor Daigle.
Thank you, Mayor Rupp. It's more just a comment. More so to Councillor Irwin, when you were talking about the increase in rates for transfer station usage. I guess in order to simplify it, and I do have, I take this into consideration when I do go over to the Park Hill transfer station. There's this large abundance of tires, which it is a luxury now that we can just discard tires. We throw them off. However, I can fully understand that when it comes time to load them, you need to have a hole the backhoe in there to load it up, 2 guys and all that kind of stuff. So there is more time incurred, but it still is a luxury to be able to drop them off there for nothing. But there is money involved in getting rid of them. So I do just want to make that point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Daigle.
Thank you, sir. Going back to, again, the dumps fees. And I hear these people over on the far side saying they don't want to see them going up. I'm for saying we need to recover our costs. That's what we're here for, not to limit the loss. If we need to double these rates, let's double them. Because if our neighbors are doing it, I can't see what the benefit is to us to have it other than half price, other than that you want to buy a cheap drink. That's it.
Oh, okay, that's it. Okay, Councillor Irwin and then Councillor.
Councillor Daigle, program evaluation, that's called unintended policy outcomes. And the unintended policy outcome of this, if you raise the rates too high, you have more people dumping on the side of the road. So you have to find the balance between cost recovery to a point and not having garbage spewed on our roads, our gullies, our ditches, in our creeks, etc. And we all know where that is in our community. So where's the balance here? Because if you raise them too high, people will dump on the side of the road.
Councillor Nelson, then I'll come to you.
Thank you. Well, I have a comment for my co-councilors over there. First of all, Councillor Keel, I would add to you that we can also get rid of our brush at no cost at all, which is very helpful to many, many people. Okay, that they're not in violation with the fire department. And as for Councillor Daigle, when you talk to you people on this side of the room, it's per person, his person. The people, the other people are okay with you.
Okay, Councillor Daigle.
Following the reason that was just used, we're going to go cheaper. So we think to people, why don't we go for free then and see if nobody dumps? That's not, doesn't make sense. We've got to recover our costs.
Sam.
Through your worship, I just might add that between Brandon and myself, we are going to look to bring another report forward at some point, hopefully in the next councillor meeting or two, just as a general transfer station update in terms of process, what we do now versus what we would like to do. Our plan originally was that was subject to these fees going through. So certainly if the fees don't pass, we're still more than welcome to do that anyway. But again, we're planning to bring another report forward in the next couple of meetings that talk more about operations and less about fees.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this? Because this was brought forward for information, just so. Alan, go ahead.
So, Your Worship, I brought this forward for information, but also for discussion.
Yes.
When it comes to this particular thing, do we have a consensus amongst the group of what direction we're going to take with this?
Free with what it is, double, and what was suggested. That's the consensus. Yeah, status quo. Is there a consensus here? Honestly, I'll just add my comment to it. I think after I've had the opportunity to talk with Sam and to Brandon, I believe about this a little bit. And I thought it was quite an increase and we talked about it. And by the time we're done talking, I felt it was an appropriate increase. I think doubling right now would be too drastic. But I think it is appropriate that we have an increase. We are losing a lot. But with that, we also talked about improving our process, improving how we're doing things. And so I don't know, we need to get some kind of consensus here and where you're at. Go ahead, Adrian.
I have the floor. Thank you.
No, did you ask me or him?
I have the floor. So
I should go to Councillor Keogh. Go ahead, Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just 2 comments. One is, if this is for information, then I can move it forward tonight for information. And secondly, I'm looking forward for the sister report, which talks about efficiencies and new methods of operations, because I think the answer might lie there.
Okay, go ahead.
If I can just speak to that for a moment, the sister report will be coming, but it won't be coming before the bylaw that will be coming to the next meeting. So bylaw will come to next meeting. And the reason our clerk is looking for consensus because he needs to draft that bylaw for your purposes so that he can have a bylaw before you that is to your liking. hoping without not significant change so that you can actually have a bylaw passed that night. But that is the reason for it. Certainly, I know that staff are working working to do a tour try recycling that was done by the environmental working group, start working with them, looking at other opportunities. So that will be a work in progress. And when we're talking about that report, sister report, that'll probably be ongoing over the next little while.
Okay, Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship, and if I just might add, and I'm happy to give specific numbers, we're certainly already looking at process improvements and we will continue to. Even process improvements, I don't think will be enough to recoup what we're losing. So I guess that's part of what we're bringing forward here is an increase in fees to sort of bridge the gap between improving process and improving service. So at bare minimum, we can break even on the transfer station. And again, I have specific numbers I'm happy to bring forward, but that's part of what our ask is here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. I have no issue with the recommendations. I do want to have a better understanding of the meter pits. Because I'm not quite clear on that, like who initiates the request for them, who insists that they be installed and all that part of it. So before we pass that fees, and I would like to have the better understanding of that.
Okay, Sam.
Through your worship to the councillor, we're in the process of updating our construction and design standards. So there will be some clarification that's coming soon in terms of meter pit stuff. But in generalities, what we're showing is more or less there's set distances in our standards beyond property line to house. If it's beyond a certain distance, we will require a meter pit at property line, which is where our meter would go, which is what we would read. So when our standards are updated, we will set that distance. In terms of who supplies it when it's required and who pays for it, again, it's going to be dictated by standards. So if you're outside of that distance, you will be required to have it. You will be required to pay for it, put it in and install it. And all we would do would be the meter work itself. And then as far as between municipality, Aqua, we would inspect the work, but we would not be involved in constructing it, supplying it, building it, or anything of that nature.
Thank you, Sam. I think that's pretty straightforward. Okay. Any other questions on this? We have motion to accept this, or do you have what you're looking for?
Your worship, from what I've gleaned from the group, that we will basically bring it largely as presented, with an exclusion of a clarification regarding the urban boundary data numbers.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're looking for someone to move it. Councillor Nurdak, Councillor Canellison, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Opposed? One opposed. Two opposed? It is, okay. Let's. Our next one is a report from Economic Development, and that is Community Development Fund Program results. Brandon, you're doing that?
So Mayor Ott, members of council, the report in front of you is the results from this year's Community Development Fund. This year, we had a total of 30 applications. The requests under various categories comprised a total of $101,862. The committee went through the different applications, and the request coming out of the committee was that there's a total funding recommendation for 2025 of $69,750, including $18,869.03 of facility rentals in kind. So those fees will be waived for those facility rentals. The allocation of the funding, 51,000, will be from vibrancy. And the committee is asking that $18,750 of the Community Development Fund be allocated through this year's tax levy. Another recommendation from the committee is to carry the annual flower costs for Elsa Craig and Park Hill through the operational budget, so that line item of $10,000 will come with our economic development budget as beautification of our main streets. Furthermore, there were some unsuccessful applicants. Should they provide further information to myself, I may at my discretion bring an amended request to council with some added information. So the list is there for council to see who was approved and for what funds. And the recommendations are as follows: that the list of recommended fund recipients be approved for a total amount of $69,750, and that the list of in-kind facility rentals with a value of $18,869.03 be approved, and that the agreement with the Park Hill Agricultural Society be updated to remove the cost recovery for the fair and sandbaggers bash, and that the request for hanging flowers by the Elsa Craig Village Association be referred to the budget, and that the approved applications beyond community vibrancy portion of the established limits be given pre-budget approval for $18,750. I will just touch briefly on that recommendation for the Park Hill Ag Society. So the Park Hill Fair has requested in-kind donation of facility. Because we have an agreement that outlines an amount, that agreement will be amended to read zero, should council's wish be to move forward with these motions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Just before I turn it over questions, I want to thank staff for putting this together. I know Felicia's not here, but I want to thank staff putting this together and the committee for going through this. It's an interesting day doing this. And I just want to thank everyone for taking their time. Questions, comments from council? No questions? We have a recommendation in front of you. What's your wish? Moved by Councilor Irwin, seconded by Councilor Nelson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The next one is a report from Director of Infrastructure. Sam, I believe, this is on the mosquito abatement program.
Yes, through your worship and members of council, in front of you tonight, I have a report that brings forward the mosquito abatement program that staff have actively been working on. In 2020, council approved this program, and since then we've done it every single year. So we work with the same consultant we've worked with every single year, Pistalto, who is the same consultant that's in this recommendation here. From what I can glean, no report's been brought forward since, but I'm bringing a report forward to council tonight. The mosquito program captures Park Hill, Elsa Craig, and Nairn, and since 2023, we also added Carlisle, so it covers 2 kilometers within those areas. The way the program works, and because we work with the Middlesex Health Unit and we work based on ministry timelines, process is already well underway. The first spray will usually take place as soon as the snow melt happens, as soon as weather permits. And then we usually will do a second spray around the end of summer, again, weather permitting. So again, the report brought forward tonight and the motions brought forward are that council receives report DIO 07-2025 regarding the North Middlesex Mosquito Abatement Program for information. The council approved the continuation of the mosquito abatement program for the calendar year of 2025. And the council awards these services to Pistalto Environment Health Services, Inc. in the amount of $50,902, excluding HST. And the council enters into an agreement with Pistalto for said services. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councilor Keel.
I'd just like to make a comment, Mayor Rob, that I cannot emphasize the importance of mosquito abatement.
Yeah.
And having on my previous term on council, I can specifically remember what the costs were at that time. Even if in the event we had to do 2 applications, and it just really hasn't gone up. It's been relatively the same price all the way through, so it's nice to see.
Yeah, the percentage increase is low compared to
Minimal
most things.
compared to the mosquito bites you get.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Councilor Nelson.
And I just want to make the comment to all of council and staff that I continue to put pressure on the Alba Bayfield to allow us to spray their properties as well. Because they breed them and we eat them, right?
Yeah. Okay, Councilor Irwin.
Just a question in terms of historical data sets. Do we have any historical data in terms of increase in mosquito population over or decrease over the length of this program? I asked this question because I received a number of calls late summer, early fall in 2024 around increased mosquito population in the Elsa Craig area. And I'm curious if we do measure in some fashion the effectiveness of this program or increase in mosquito populations.
Well, no, just a second. I don't know if we have the numbers. Pestle does. Like the people doing it do have those numbers. I don't know, Sam, do you have those numbers or?
Not handy, no,
Yeah.
but I could certainly report back.
I
yes.
think I know that they do have them, and anybody who was here in 2013 remembers the mosquitoes the size of barn swallows, and there was a lot of them. Like it was, so the program works, but I agree. There's been some years where if it gets wet in August, once they've hatched, and yeah, so it has been very good, but maybe we can get some numbers from Pestle and see if there is any, but Councilor Nelson.
Yeah, and just to emphasize further on to your comments, Mayor Ropp, is that I think that's why it's imperative and critical that a bylaw person goes around and ensures that these vacant lots in our towns are adequately mowed and drained properly and well maintained, because that's where the mosquitoes breed in town.
Okay, Sam?
Through your worship to the council, I'm certainly happy to request the data and provide it, whatever they give me, I'm happy to share that with you. And to the other councillor, I've talked about this briefly with Ashley and other staff. It's certainly something that, if not already in our agreements, we will look to build in our agreements going forward in terms of ensuring that that is something that is captured as part of development maintenance.
I think that's a great idea going forward. Well, anything else on this? I gather nobody's going to be against it. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Councillor Keel. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Committee reports. Any committees that wish to report on this? I don't have any minutes. Councillor Irwin?
Economic Development Committee will meet next week. Sad to say that Councillor Nerda has decided to leave us. So it won't be the same. And we also will be bringing forward some new members to the committee, given the changes in the bylaw from the previous council meeting.
Okay. Councillor Nelson.
It's unfortunate. I just learned that Councillor Nerda's left that committee because I just referenced someone to contact her for new business opportunities in Park Hill. I was not aware that she was leaving. Who's taking her place? Do we know?
Alan?
Your worship, through an observation by Councillor. So that was the adjustment. Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We'll move on. Correspondence. City of Peterborough, Bill 242 resolution. Township of South Stormont, Rural Road Safety Program. And Township of Woolwich, Election Advocacy. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have an opportunity to speak about 10.3 with the clerk prior to the meeting. And he felt that, and I agree that it's been 30 years since we've looked at any kind of update or changes to how we conduct municipal elections, and it would be good to support this motion.
Moving to support it.
Yes.
Is there a seconder? Seconder is support.
Sure.
Councillor Keel. With enthusiasm. All in favor? Carried.
I have a question on this motion here. Or this 10.3, does that also mean the voters list? Do we have to improve the voters list? Is that referencing that as well?
Through your worship, the resolution tabled by the two municipalities is more of a general recommendation to review everything. However, the Elections Act for municipalities has been updated so that the voters list is being merged between the municipalities and the province. So we're going to be using the province's list moving forward.
Okay. All right. Other and urgent business. We got, first of all, I think, Ralph, are you speaking on this? On the county loan agreement, or who's speaking on that? Go ahead, Al.
I'll kick it off. So we in 2021 there was a resolution to pursue this form of agreement for the facility, which is the Park Hill Fire and Paramedic Service Station. Coming full circle 4 years later, we now do have a agreement on the table from the county to provide a $2.5 million loan at, I believe, 0%. So it seems like a very reasonable deal. 1 point of procedure here is I have asked for the CAO and the treasurer to be the signing officers instead of the mayor, because the mayor has a moderate conflict of interest by being the warden as well. So you'd be signing both sides, so we're not doing that.
No. Any questions on that? No. We have a motion in front of us. Moved by Councillor Gates. Do you want to speak to it?
I just thought I would mention, I know that I wasn't aware, and certainly when the treasurer and I were speaking to it, I wasn't aware initially that it was for 10 years, over 10 years, which was, I think, good news to us rather than, I think we were thinking it was over 5 years. So, so a payback period of 10 years at no interest.
And I think the program is a maximum of 15, but generally they have been a 10-year payback system. So we have a motion in front of us. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Go ahead.
Your worship.
Yep.
I believe Director Drew has an urgent matter to be added to the agenda.
Go ahead.
So
ahead.
certainly not urgent, but other business. I would like to commemorate Felicia. I know she's not here, but we had our first annual wedding show this past weekend. That was a North Middlesex signature event that we put on. Felicia did a lot of work. She secured 32 vendors. We actually turned away 7 vendors just because we thought it was going to be too tight. We had 150 people come through who were planning to have their wedding within the next year. So I did see a lot of local faces there, so I thought it went over quite well. And just a nice side note, 2 people coming through, 2 separate people mentioned to Felicia that they found out about the wedding show because of the new digital sign in Elsa Craig. So
Nice.
yeah, I just wanted to pass along the congratulations to Felicia on accomplishing that.
Absolutely. Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Just one other thing that I'd like to bring up in other and urgent business. We've historically, we've heard from many of our departments. We hear from them on a regular basis. However, we never seem to hear anything about the bylaw enforcement. And it would be, I think, beneficial to hear what activity we have going on here in the municipality. We don't need to know who the offenders are, but we just like to know that there is presence and that there is activity going on.
Would you like to recommend a quarterly report?
Oh, even so much as just attend one of the meetings so we can put a face to the name and tell us what he thinks.
But
He's
a
been
quarterly
here
report
now.
would seem
And
reasonable. I think.
certainly a report like similar to what we had before when we had a service do it for us. So
Okay. All right. I don't think we need a motion. It was just direction. Okay. Any other business? Okay. Seeing none. Communication, including county council, the warden's report. Okay. Any questions on it? No questions on it. Thank you. Reading of the bylaws. Reading the bylaws, Alan.
Thank you, your worship. That bylaws 9, 10, and 11 of 2025 be read first and second time.
Councillor Nerda. Oh,
Correction, 12 instead of 11.
Councillor Nerda, second by Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Carried. Third and final, Councillor Canellison, Councillor Daigle. All in favor? Carried. All right, we need a motion to go into closed. And it's for the matter that relates to identifiable individuals as well as labor relations, a matter that is likely to include litigation. Councillor Nerda, you look too keen on that. Councillor Nerda, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. All right, we'll just be